You've heard recently on this channel how the Lords have defeated the government on a number of votes. Well, MPs hitting back with a significant vote yesterday. I'm going to bring you all the very latest on this, guys, but if you could please start off as ever by clicking subscribe and the bell so you don't miss future reports. Would really appreciate that. As I say, lots going on and I don't want you to miss out on the very latest here on the Westminster channel. So let's just give you the context, because we're talking about the agricultural bill here. Now, the Times with a recent report saying that Downing Street is to face down Tory rebels and environmental campaigners and reject demands for tougher food standards in future trade deals. In a hardline stance, this is what the Times reported at the time, Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's chief advisor, has instructed ministers not to make concessions when the government's controversial agriculture bill returns to the Commons on Monday, and that being yesterday. The bill was amended in the House of Lords to include a requirement that food products imported under future trade deals meet or exceed UK domestic standards. Peers also passed a plan to set up a permanent and independent trade and agriculture commission that would scrutinise all trade deals and report to Parliament before they could be signed. But Downing Street has made clear that it intends to reject both amendments despite powerful lobbying by environmental groups, farming unions and Jamie Oliver, the celebrity chef. The move, the Times reported, is seen as a victory for Liz Truss, the Trade Secretary who fought a Whitehall battle not to tie the hands of trade negotiators in free trade talks with Australia, New Zealand and the US. In a letter sent to MPs seen by the Times, Victoria Prentice, the Environment Minister, and we'll be hearing a bit more from her later, stated that the government would reject both amendments because they risked adverse effects on trade. The amendment requiring imports of food and agricultural goods to meet domestic standards would be much wider ranging than those we have in place today, she wrote. Such conditions, she went on to say, would make it very difficult to secure any new trade deals. Now, one senior Tory was quoted in this story as saying that Number 10 would play big boy politics to pressure the rebels. There is no sign at all that the government is willing to compromise, they said. Number 10 doesn't want its hands tied in any way, and they think they've got the majority to push it through. Now, a government spokesman at the time said this government has been clear that it will not sign a trade deal that will compromise on our high environmental protection, animal welfare and food standards. If the deal isn't the right one, we will walk away. And one would hope that also extends, of course, to the EU negotiations. We'll wait and see on that front. The Times analysis of this was that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson believed that for too long some of the EU standards have been little more than protectionism. They have both long been critical of the precautionary approach taken to regulation. Besides, free trade Tories would argue, why would we stand in the way of cheaper food if it is safe? Now, we get to this vote yesterday. MPs voted to overturn the House of Lords amendment to the agricultural bill. The MPs voted to overturn it by 332 to 279, a majority of 53. There were a couple of amendments, but this was the main one. As I'll repeat it, the House of Lords amendment to the agricultural bill was defeated by the government, 332 to 279, as I say, a majority of 53. Now, just to give you the breakdown on that, because again, this shows you we're dealing with a very different parliament at this time now, obviously, compared to the one before. So in terms of those who didn't want to overturn the Lords Amendment, you had 190 Labour, 47 SNP, 11 Lib Dems and 14 Conservative MPs as well. So there's 14 Conservative rebels on this. But that contrasts with 325 Conservative MPs who overturned the Lords Amendment on this. So this amendment then stripped away, because you had, as I say, 325 Conservative MPs vote to strip it. Now, the government's argument on this is that existing protections are already in place and they have no intention of watering them down. Environment Minister Victoria Prentice said the government will not change the law of the land on import standards under any circumstances. She told the Commons that fear-mongering must stop tonight. We are not going to be importing chlorine-washed chicken or hormone-treated beef. That is the law of this land. She said that the government is not going to change it under any circumstances, and we have already said very clearly that in all trade negotiations we will not compromise on a high environmental protection, animal welfare or food standards. We have a range of tools to protect us, she said, We have the existing regulation. We have parliamentary scrutiny, which I detailed earlier, including the Select Committee, which I, for one, think is significant. So there's a couple of points on this. Obviously, the parliamentary arithmetic there. We've spoken before about how the Lords, overwhelmingly pro-EU, some very, very hardline Remainers in there. They've dished out some big defeats to the government. But here you have MPs actually overturning and outvoting in the House of Commons in terms of Conservative MPs, as I say, more than 300 on the crucial vote on this amendment. And I must say, when it comes to future trade deals, there does seem to be this downbeat, very negative tendency that we have, that overwhelmingly Remainers who campaign against Brexit, and I've highlighted this before, how they said, oh, you won't get any deals, the deals will all take years. Well, we got one done with Japan in about 3 months of negotiation. And now they seem to want to restrict what we can do in terms of deals. And as I say, they don't seem to have a good word or a positive word to say about the benefits of Brexit. One of the big ones, of course, being that ability to go around the world, negotiate global trade deals. And of course, if they're not the right deals, the government can walk away. But the government should not be restricted in what it can and cannot negotiate. It's called democracy. You allow your government to negotiate these deals and then you cast judgment once they've been done. But Brexit, of course, gives this country that magnificent opportunity. And it shows you actually, as I said, there was a relatively small number of Conservative rebels on this, but it does seem at the heart, Dominic Cummings with Boris Johnson, having no intention of backing down, determined not to make concessions on this, and as I say, having the parliamentary arithmetic, having the votes in the House of Commons to get this through. But it really does, you've got to question in the long term, is this arrangement with the House of Lords really viable? I mean, I reported on one vote the other day, I think there was more than 100 majority against the government in the Lords. Is this really sustainable that time and time again you're going to see the Lords defeat the government year after year in not, close run things, but massive majorities? Are the government going to take radical action on the Lords? Are they going to put a large number of Brexiteers in there to make it more representative of British public opinion? Are they going to potentially look at some sort of reform or scrapping the Lords altogether? I know a lot of you guys want to see that done. Or are they simply happy to accept the Lords are going to repeatedly defeat the government with amendments, and then the government in the House of Commons will rely on its MPs to overturn? Let me know what you think the government should do, guys. Let me know what you think about this story overall, what you think about the government's stance here on trade and the ability to negotiate trade deals unconstrained. And as ever, guys, if you enjoyed this report, if you found it helpful and informative, please help me out by clicking thumbs up. Really helps me out. And click subscribe and the bell so you don't miss future reports. And as ever, guys, thank you very much for watching.